Hello everyone, I added a handful of documentaries to the collection over the past month or so and wanted to put them all together in their own little video. One of it which I wasn't expecting to come quite yet. It was kind of a race to see what will come first, the Star Trek Voyager documentary or the In Search of Tomorrow documentary, and that showed up. In Search of Tomorrow. I really enjoyed the In Search of Darkness, or the Elvira edition there. I talked about that when I picked that up. It was a great love letter to 1980s horror, and this was even more up my alley. I still have to grab the first one, the Action Heroes one, to complete the set of what I want. I know they did sequels to the horror, but I just want the first one. This is the one I was most excited for, though. My favorite genre, whether it's movies, books, TV shows, video games, is always science fiction, and my favorite decade is the 1980s. So this was the perfect thing for me, a 5-hour long documentary focused on the science fiction movies of the 1980s. You cannot get more specific to my interests. I mean, you see all these classic 1980s science fiction vehicles shooting towards you here in the cover art, and like every single one of those are so iconic and recognizable to me because this is the perfect thing. 5 hours worth of interviews and all kinds of commentary and an examination of the culture of science fiction cinema in the 1980s. Just the perfect thing for me. I can't wait to dig into this. This is the kind of thing that I will watch again and again over the years and find favorite segments and rewatch those. I'm going to be watching this for a long time. This is great. This is a Blu-ray release. I had backed this, I guess, what was it, almost like a year and a half ago now? 2 years ago? It was a long time ago. This had been delayed multiple times due to things like COVID and some production issues, and eventually it was going to come out. And same thing with the Star Trek Voyager documentary that I backed a long time ago as well. Those things are eventually coming out, and it's really cool, and I wasn't expecting it again to show up today. It just came to my door, and it's very excited. So you have, first off, the Blu-ray disc, and then on the inside you have, I don't know, I actually might prefer the other regular cover art is all the vehicles, and then here you have a lot of characters, like Flash Gordon, characters from everything, Star Trek, Blade Runner, Predator, RoboCop, all kinds of cool stuff. So I don't know which one I like better. Actually, I like both. I don't know which one I prefer. They're both really cool and beautiful artwork. I love both of them and iconic for what the documentary is all about. And a booklet with that same artwork on it. And all the information and commentary about the creation of this documentary. There's a film checklist of some of the films that are covered in each year. The 80s was such a great decade for science fiction. I really think they picked the right things, because as much as I love a lot of stuff from the 80s, I think what really stands out, aside from the typical, like teen comedies and things that have never really gone away, stood the test of time, I think the genres that really stand out from the 1980s are horror and action and science fiction. And a lot of my favorite science fiction films of all time are released in the 1980s. We have 1982 alone is one of my favorite years in all of cinema. I mean, right there we have The Wrath of Khan, E.T., and Blade Runner. We have Tron, Road Warrior, Megaforce, but some of my, if you watch my film talking about my favorite films of all time, almost half of, I guess, say roughly a third of my top 10 was released in 1982. So that is a cool little addition as well. A special thanks. You have the booklet, and then of course there are some extras. The Elvira had the poster and the pin. This has a different series of stickers with the different cover art. Again, these two are just so cool. I don't know which one I like better. They have very different feels to them, and it's just fascinating. Really cool. 5 hours of 1980s science fiction, and then we have the posters, which I won't pull them out here because it is the cover arts. So the posters are the cover arts. the three cover arts, all three of them, I meant to say. So all three of these you get a poster of as well, all three of those cover arts. So that's really cool. They did a great job with the artwork. That is the first thing that I added. Put that here. And definitely the one I'm most excited about. Wasn't expecting that to show up. And then two other ones. One that came, if you watched, I did a video all about that amazing Dick Van Dyke set. And the same time that I was able to get that, I grabbed I was really lucky in finding this. We have Mary Pickford, the Muse of the Movies, a documentary all about Mary Pickford, her life, and more specifically, her career in the movies. And I was lucky to grab this because it is becoming more and more rare, and somehow, just like random, searching through eBay, you usually will find used copies of this anywhere from like $40 to $60, and like new copies are like $60 to $70, $80. And somehow I found someone had this listed for like $12 plus shipping, in like pristine condition. It was in like new condition, and so I jumped right on that. And you never know when you find that. That was a great deal, and it has great reviews. I've always been looking out to grab this, and I just had never picked it up because they were going used copies $40 plus. But when I found that, because it is an amazing look at Mary Pickford, who I've always been fascinated by early cinema. I'm a huge movie fan, more specifically from the turn of the century until the turn of this century. There's kind of like a 100-year span where like that's really where my interest lies. It doesn't matter what country it is or what decade. I love all cinema from the last century, and I really enjoy the story of a lot of early movie stars in the teens and 20s and into the 30s, and the history of the formation of motion pictures. And this is perfect because Mary Pickford not only was a hugely popular movie star and has a lot of great movies and is really enjoyable to watch, but the story of her career coincides pretty much exactly with birth of motion pictures in the US and the eventual foundation, the eventual move, and then like foundation of film in Hollywood, California, as opposed to like New York. So it's really cool. It goes hand in hand, so you get a whole lot of history of early film along with her career at the same time. So it's kind of like a 2-for-1 thing, and I'm really excited to watch that. Again, I've only seen some clips and reviews, and it looks really, really good. It's right up my alley. And the last thing is a surprise that I had no idea was coming out, because it was not something I would ever expect to come out until I actually saw another film collector talk about it, and I couldn't believe this was coming out. It is a Netflix exclusive series, and Netflix originals, Hulu originals, Amazon, Apple TV, whatever, all those. There's so much good programming on a lot of the streaming services, Disney Plus now, that has never received a physical release anywhere, and a lot of it probably never will and will eventually disappear. So when something actually does get a physical release, it is surprising, and it's not even an on-demand title. It's a full press disc, it's a full release. So that really surprised me too. I thought it was going to be DVD-R, but it's not. And I really enjoyed this series, so very happy this came. Is Netflix The Toys That Made Us, seasons 1 and 2 on DVD, a 3-disc set with additional bonus features. There's a featurette with the creator and deleted scene from the Star Trek episode, so particularly good for me. I really enjoyed this. It comes in this kind of flimsy cardboard case, but other than that, the discs are in great shape. They overlap, but they don't rub. There's a little bit of a lip there, so that's good. It has a description of what's on each one. And I loved this series. I'm really happy that it came out physically. It's all about keeping the theme of the 1980s, really, the 70s moving into the 80s with Star Wars. But it is all about the history of Star Wars, and then Barbie will be older as well. But Barbie, He-Man, G.I. Joe, Star Trek, Transformers, Lego, Hello Kitty. So it is a big focus on the history of a lot of those popular toy franchises. And I think the Star Trek, the He-Man, and the Star Wars are definitely my favorites. I mean, the story of Star Wars and that first Christmas, and just getting that, basically an IOU picture a card for Christmas. And the story of Star Wars toys is really fascinating. And then the Rise of He-Man, also one's right up my alley. I enjoyed all of them, but those are my favorites. And Star Trek, and how they kept kind of messing up with Star Trek, releasing toys for the less popular films and then not releasing toys for ones that were surprise hits. Just really funny. They just couldn't quite get things on track with some of the early Star Trek movie toys. So that is a really great collection of documentaries that all arrived recently, and that's why I was holding off on them as they came in to do them all together. And then, In Search of Tomorrow, that was fantastic. Still the Voyager documentary coming this year, so a really good year for some great documentaries added to the collection. And again, there's a lot of releases that are kind of catching up from being delayed, with world events over the past couple of years, and they're all kind of coming to a head around the same time. There's a lot of cool stuff coming out in terms of any of these kind of crowd-funded and backed projects. So In Search of Tomorrow, 5 hours of that. I can't wait to dig into that. It's going to be like a multi-day thing to explore, and just this is a lot to get into, and I love documentaries.